answer. Here, this thing that 50 came, the total number of students is again a information for me. This particular 50 is again a information, but this information, because this 31 I told you that was an information, but when you stored over here, it becomes the data. So for this kind of processing, when I have the information is 50, this stored thing becomes data. So whenever something is going to be stored as a fact, then it is going to be called as a data. So you can see that. So that if you have some data, you can apply some processing and you can get what? You can get what? If you have some data and you apply some processing, and then you are going to get the information. If you again apply some kind of processing on this, what you get? You again get the information. You again apply on some of the processing on this, you again going to get the information. But at the time when you are applying the processing, at that time this data would be, this information would be treated as a data. So the very important thing comes that if you are only going to obtain the information from the data, then what is knowledge? What is knowledge? Very important term. What is the knowledge? Then what is the knowledge? So I just wanted to, just for the sake of attendance, can everybody write yes that you understand this? That am I audible to everybody? At the everybody, please can you type yes that you are here? Audience, students, can you type yes? Everybody, please type yes. Yeah, good, great. So I want to make this conversation a dialogue. Every time if you have a question, please put it here. You can type, and then we will enjoy the lecture more. So what I wanted to tell you, that then very important question comes, that what is the knowledge? So knowledge, please try to understand, is a very abstract concept. That is actually coming. That is a very difficult to find out from the data. It can be only verified on the data. It can be only verified out the data. It cannot be obtained from the data. This is a very important part that we should understand. The knowledge comes from philosophy. For example, you are sitting in your room, you are thinking that because the things are happening like this, and you develop a philosophy, you tell that, okay, it looks like that the data is linearly separable. Okay, sometime you may be thinking that looks like that there is some neural network that I can apply. So it looks like that I can apply the decision tree on the data. So all these things, what is the model that you are going to apply is actually your knowledge. And this comes from the philosophy. You somehow you think, and how you think it is very difficult to tell. Somehow you think that there is some philosophy, there is some understanding from which your knowledge is coming. And when you have developed this knowledge, you actually want to apply on this particular data to verify that whether my knowledge is correct or not, whether my knowledge is correct or not. Let me give you an example. So everybody can see this data. This is the data. What is this? So you know that the data is actually arranged into the form of rows. So this is the row. So there must be some item. For example, there is some item X. So with this particular item, there are few properties X1, X2, and X3. These three are the properties. Let's assume that we have measured what is the value of these three properties. So that these values are 9, 6, and 1. So three values we have actually obtained. And then there is some target value. So the target value, let's assume, be the 14. So how 9, 6, and 1 is related to this particular y value is actually our understanding. 9, 6 provided 9, 6, 1. How you get this particular value of y? This particular function is actually your knowledge. If you can understand this particular function, this is going to be the knowledge. It directly does not come from the data. However, if you have the knowledge, you can verify that, okay, all the things are actually put over there. So that's why it's a very important concept, very elegant concept, that you have to somehow come up. So for example, how to generate these values. So when I prepared this thing, I'm not sure about this, but there is something I don't know. But for example, 3 multiplied by x1 plus x2 multiplied by x3 square, some formula, percentage something 30. I'm not sure about this. Let's assume that this is some formula. And this formula is represented by this f. So what is the knowledge? Knowledge is this formula. Knowledge is this formula. Finding out this is a very important thing. If you can find out this knowledge, then this need of this particular data is not at all required. Only this formula is enough. Given an item, you can apply it through the formula. Immediately you can find out what is the value of y's. So this is the purpose of data mining. What is the purpose of data mining? To develop knowledge. The purpose of data mining is to develop knowledge so that for the given data, you come up with a formula that using this formula, you can predict that what is the output value. Make sense? So what is the data mining? Data mining is actually finding out this particular knowledge. Okay. Doing something to find out, to explore the knowledge. There is a very important and settled notion that is called the knowledge discovery in the databases. Databases, not the database. Not means multiple databases are there, and you want to you have a knowledge and you want to discover in some way so that you can tell that actually this is the knowledge. This knowledge is correct. You want to tell that this knowledge is correct. So the goal of data mining is this, that we want to facilitate knowledge discovery into the databases. So if you a lot of databases you have, your task is to find out the right kind of function so that you can perform all these kind of tasks. Okay. So if you see from very high level perspective, then the knowledge discovery in databases actually involves 5 different steps. One is the selection, that you collect the data. Then the pre-processing, you process the data in such a way so that you can take it forward. Then you transform this into such a way so that it is effectively processed. Then you apply a data science algorithmic tool for the data mining. Then you do the data mining. And then when the result comes, you want to evaluate or interpret that particular result. So you can think that overall objective is to do the KDD, but in that the portion of the portion of the data mining is only to this particular one step. That is a very interesting thing to know. Data mining is a very complex area, and it is not a single area that actually drives it. Multiple things are required. You have to know, you have to have the idea of the information retrieval. That given the information, how can you, if things are stored, how can you get those information, and how can you access, and how can you store? Things are coming from the statistics, because you know that if you these statistics actually is the main driving factor that tells that if this is a data, this is a right data or not, whether I'm interpreting the things into the right way or not. Then comes the machine learning. That is a very fundamental part that tells that the mathematical tools, it develops the mathematical tools with the proof to be correct. And here the objective is that the thing should be automatic. I should not invest myself my energy in learning the thing. Only after setting the particular model, finding out the right parameter should be done automatically. So the machine learning, the task of machine learning is this. Here also we have a need of algorithmic aspect means that you want to make the things efficient. Whatever things you are making, you should make the efficient things. And then also we have to talk about the databases. That is that how to store and how to go ahead with the databases, how to collect the databases, what should be the, how you deal with the things which are actually not available or data not available. So many things you have to deal about that. So it's a very complex kind of place where we are actually working about. So this was the small introduction of the data mining. So let us start discussing some of the specific problem into the data mining domain. So let me pick this particular very favorite problem to everybody, that is called the association rule mining. Association rule mining is also called as a market basket analysis, where people actually think that there is something. Let's assume that there is some departmental store and the multiple items are there. Let's assume that the I1, I2, I3, IM are the items over there. I1 could be soap, I2 could be, for example, bread, then milk, then other things. Okay, so many things are there. So you know that it happens into the markets. For example, when you go to the market to purchase the milk, most of the time you also purchase the bread. Okay, milk, you also purchase bread. So you may be thinking that in the 70% of the cases when the person is purchasing milk, he is also purchasing bread. So these things are related. So this is called the market basket analysis, where we want to understand what is the relationship between these two items. Okay, what is the relationship between two items? If one item is being purchased, then second item is most likely to be purchased. So what is the advantage of this? If you can find out this information that two things are actually being sold uh, into the concurrent way, then how can you utilize this? So looks like that if you are opening a shop and you are only putting a milk at your shop, and you are not having the bread, then the less people are going to be come to your shop. So if you have this analysis, you must have the both the things at your shop. The day you don't have the milk, people would not be also not be purchasing the bread. So this analysis is very fundamental, and into the machine learning domain, into the data mining domain. So people call it association rule mining. So here the mathematical setting is this, that some items are there. Let's assume the items are provided to you. I1, I2, I3 are the actually items. So I1, I2, I3, IM are the items, and you, as I told you, that I1 could be, for example, I1 could be milk, I2 could be I2 could be bread, I3 could be butter, I4 could be anything. So many items are there. Then we have some transactions. Transaction means somebody is coming and he have purchased some item. For example, milk and butter. Okay. So if I make this set and put it somewhere, and this is my call the first transaction. Somebody have purchased these things. So this is my transaction. I can have multiple transactions because many people are coming T1, T2, T, and many people are coming. They are having the transactions. All these transactions are given to me. Now, given these transactions, can I do the analysis and tell that which are the items which are related? And if I can do this, this is what the precisely market basket or the association rule mining problem is. So everybody, whether the problem is clear? Okay. Yes. Can you type yes? Whether the problem is clear, lot of transactions are given to you. The problem is this, that lot of transaction is given to you, lot of transactions are given to you, and these every transaction is actually a subset of the items, because person is buying subset of the items, and then using those items, those are this is going to be created your database, and now you want to find out that which items are sold with each other. So this is what your objective is. Okay. So ultimately, you'll be giving me this kind of implications. Okay, this is the association rule. It means that if somebody is purchasing X, and X could be not a single item, it could be a set of items. If somebody is purchasing this set of items, then definitely he is going to also purchase this set of items, that is Y. And here our assumption is that X and Y are not they are not sharing any item in common, and that is not a big assumption. That is fair assumption, because what does it mean that person is buying apple and milk, is also purchasing milk and butter? So into the Y they should be distinct. Okay, so if we want to find out which are the things are related, so sometimes you may be thinking that every time the person purchasing for the milk may not be purchasing bread, na? But you will be thinking that, okay, it looks like that in many of the cases people are actually purchasing. Okay, so there are two parameters that can actually take care of this particular assumption that things are not going to happen 100%. And those things are support and confidence. These are the two parameters called the support and confidence. Support says that if X and Y, you want to find out the relationship between X and Y, see what is the probability that in your data you are going to find out those item those item at the same time. Then the second thing is confidence, that tells that if somebody is purchasing the item X, what is the probability that he would also purchase the item Y. So it would be clear to you with respect to this example. Let's assume that we want to find out the support and confidence for this particular association rule, that is X implies Y. This is what the database I have. Okay, in this database, if you want to find out, so what the thing, support and confidence. So what is the support? Support is the probability of X union Y. Mean X and Y both are appearing. So you can see that X and Y both are appearing at the how many places? X and Y are appearing at the 3 places. So it is 3 divided by 10, because 10 number of transitions are there in my table. So it is, whether it is clear to everybody? Now I want to find out what is the confidence. To find out the confidence, you have to find out that what is the probability of Y given X. Given X means you have to only consider those places where Y is there, where X is there. So you see at how many places X is there. X is here, X is here, X is here, X is here, and X is here. In all these places, at how many places Y is also there, you can see that Y is here, Y is here, and Y is here. At 3 places it is there. But now total number of cases which in this particular scenario we are considering is only 5. So the answer is going to be 3 by 5. So this is the mathematical notion that tells that what is the support and confidence. Hope it is clear to you. Now we want to find out association rule mining, as I told you, that for a given support and confidence, the problem of mining association rules is to find out all the association rules that have the confidence and support greater than the corresponding thresholds. Okay. So you have to find out two things. First, all the frequent item sets you have to find, and then using the frequent item set, you have to generate the association rules. So finding out the frequent item sets and then generating this. Generating is a straightforward mechanism. So most of the research interest lies in finding out the frequent item sets. What is the frequent item sets? We'll be talking about this. There is a one very important algorithm called a priori that can help you to find out us to find out this association rules by constructing the frequent item set. Let us see that what that algorithm is. So a priori algorithm, I would like to tell you using this particular example. I have an example. I hope this is a better way to tell you. So let's assume that in my database, this is all the transactions we have. Okay, how many transactions we have? 9 transactions. How many transactions I have? 9 transactions. So I would use sorry, one item set. I would use one item set, two item set, three item set, dot dot dot, whatever is possible. What is the one item set? So because you see the items are A, B, C, D, E, F. You write A, B, C, D, E, F. These are the item. Count that how many times they are computed. So what is the support for them? So here, if you count the A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 times he was coming. So I have written 6. This table is clear to everybody that how I find out the support for this. In the database, I have just counted. Let's assume that it is provided that if the support is greater than 3, then I am telling that this is actually good for me. I want to frequent item set which have the support greater than 3. So if the support greater than 3 is needed, then in this particular table, who is going to have the support greater than 3? You can see that A, B, C, and E. So A, B, C, and E, this particular set is called the label 1 set. This is what the one size frequent item set. Then I want to create the two size frequent item set. That would be created by combining the way, in how many ways you can combine these things. A, B, C, E are there. You can combine A with B. You can combine A with B, A with C, A with E, A, B, A, C, A, E. Then combine B with C, B with E, B, C, B, E. Then C with E, C, E. These are the 6 things that are only possible. These are the 6 things possible. Again, you go and find out that what is the support for AB. So support for AB, let me just help you. So AB is here. AB is, let me use the darker color. So let me first clear it. Okay, support for AB is here. Support for AB is here. AB is here. AB is here. AB is here. So support for AB is 5. So here I missed. I think 5 is okay. 5 places. Support for AB is 5. Similarly, you find out what is the support for AC, AE, BC, BE, C. And I wanted the support to be greater than 3. So who are the going to be selected into my frequent item sets? You know that AB, AC, and BC. So this is the 2 item frequent item sets. Any problem with this? Now you try to combine them to make the 3 item AB and combine this thing, combine in whatever way you can combine. And you can see that whenever you are combining 2 things, you are going to get ABC. So you are getting candidate as ABC. Try to see in how many places ABC is there. Again, we have to do the same thing. ABC is here, ABC is here, ABC is here, ABC is here. So four places ABC is there. I need greater than 3, so it is okay. So this, what are the frequent item sets here in this particular setting? With this particular database, what are the frequent item sets? You have just seen that this is what the item sets. This is what the list is. Okay, now my task is to generate the association rule. How to generate the association rule? The formula is this, that if you find out any W that is a superset of X, then find out what is the support of X and support of W, divide this. If it is greater than the threshold that is we are going to utilize, then you can say that X implies W minus X is a association rule. Okay, so it would be clear to you with when I would use an example here. Everybody knows that our frequent item set is AB. This is our frequent item set. Everybody knows this. We have just few minutes back computed this. What is the frequent item set? Here these numbers are actually there. Their support that we have just seen that I need to use into the dividing. Okay, so who are the possible candidate? if you find out any W that is a suppose superset of X. So for example, I take C. For example, if I take C, then AC and ABC give me that C implies A and C implies AB. These are the two association rules possible. Whether they are valid or not, that would depend upon the when I would put into this particular formula. If let's assume that C mean is 1.22, so what is the support for in this particular formula? Let us say what is the support for X? What is our X? X is this particular thing C. What is the support for C? Support for C, you know that support for C is 6. So it is 6 divided by support for W. W is a bigger set, means support for AC 6 divided by 4. So it comes out to be how much? 2 point, am I right? 3 by 2 is 1.5, is 1.5, am I right? Similarly, for this particular case, it is again 6 divided by AB. AB is AB. ABC is 4. 6 divided again 6 by 1.4. So both the things actually are not going to be satisfied. However, so this was a complete list where C implies A was also given. C2 BA was also given, and we have seen that none of them are actually satisfied. So C implies A. Where is C implies A? This. Okay, so you can find out that if I think okay I just missed this, that this value is 1.22. I was thought that 2.22. If it is 1.22, so then these are going to be qualified, and you can see here that out of these available ones, 1 minute, let me clear it and tell you that out of these available one, this way we have computed now 1.15 we have computed, and the threshold bar 1.22 only, so it is qualified. So you can see that C implies A is here. Similarly, C implies BA or AB is also here. Few are not able to qualify AB, BA, that depends upon the thing. So this is how we do the association rule mining. Whether this part is clear to everybody? Yes? Yes? Right, yes? This part is clear to everybody? Hmm? Yes? Can you write yes, please? Good. Excellent. Now we are going to talk about a very important scenario. That is the topic of today's class, is this incremental association rule mining. What the condition is? The condition is this. Let's assume that this was the database that you had. This is the database that you have. This is the database you have. But I'm telling that remove this particular part. I'm telling that this is delta minus part. Remove this particular part. Can you remove this particular part for me? And you add this particular part, and you add this particular part, that is delta plus. So if you remove this part, and add this part, the new database is going to be this is called the, let me call it the database D dash. So you had the database D, and let's assume that you have done the association rule mining and you have find out that what are the association rule, but now your database has changed to D dash. How to find out again the association rule? Again, how can you find out the association rules? Please concentrate. So only way is this, that whatever earlier we have did the same thing I can apply here also. Okay, the same mechanism I can apply here also, and I can get the results. But the point is that most of the time this computation is going to take lot of processing, because this database is very large, lot of processing is there, and when the data is only a small portion has changed, again you have to do the complete things. So it becomes very burden thing. Is it possible some way? My question is very important. Is it possible something that I utilize this particular part, previously available results, and I can generate this new result only investing order of delta plus delta minus amount of computation? That would be interesting thing, because the changes are very less. Changes are not very large. These changes are not very large. So if I can do it, it would be very interesting. If I can do into this particular way, it is called the incremental data mining. Everybody, is it clear what is incremental data mining? What do I mean by incremental data mining? Yes or no? Is it clear? No? Once again, very important concept it is. I'm just going to just repeat into the sake of completeness, so that if somebody has missed, let me tell you, the database was D. You find out that what are the association rule. You have invested a huge amount of computation here, but your database had changed. Only delta plus and delta minus changes, and your data becomes D dash. Now you find out the new association rule. This finding out this association rule again required a lot of processing. This processing may be very huge. Is it possible? My question is it possible to use this particular thing and convert and determine the new association rules by investing only delta plus delta minus amount of processing? If I can do it, it would be called the incremental association rule mining. All right. So this is this particular slides does not tell anything more than this, that the things are actually, that it only tells this thing that new database is going to be old database minus something plus adding something. So this is an important concept. Try to understand that we are going to do this. And our objective would be that whatever association rule you have, when you have this particular database, utilize that thing to find out the association rule for this particular new database by investing only data plus delta minus amount of processing. How to do that? So we are going to talk about the two algorithm. One is the fast update 1 and fast update 2. The difference between those two algorithm is only this, that this fast update 1, that is FUP algorithm, only can handle insertion. Means if there is no deletion part, only the things are inserted, then this algorithm can be applied. But if the insertion and deletion both are there, then you can apply the FUP2 algorithm. Let us see how this algorithm works. The fast update algorithm, FUP algorithm, the full form is called the fast update algorithm. The link is here. You can go and try to search for this for the more details. I'm just going to give you the high level idea. Okay. It actually says that if into the new area, if the, for example, this was your database and this new thing has come recently, if anything is frequent here, then you have to test into the complete database whether it is eligible to be added into the things or not. Otherwise, you just neglect. Don't compute for everything. Just compute for the thing here, that which are the things are actually uh, frequent. And for those things, if you can look into the database, that suffices your processing. Let me tell you how. We have a same example. Let us continue with the same example. So this was the example we had. This was the table that we had, and this was the frequent item set that we have created few minutes back. Let's assume that delta plus few items are added to me. So what I would do, I would use, for example, one by one item set. I'm going to update the one item set. Okay, how to update this one item set? It says find out that who are the actually added over here. You can see that B, D, and D and F, then A, then B, then B is added, so I can write BB. Okay. Then C is coming, then D is again coming. So you see that this is how things are added. Okay, one A is added, one C is added, one F is added, three D's are added, and two B's are added. So here I can add this. This was 6. So 6 plus 1A becomes 7. And here B was 6. So 6 plus 2 becomes 8. What was the C? C, one more C came. C was 6. Then it becomes 7. Uh, E was here, but no support came. So it remains 4 by 12 only. So 4 by 12, as I told you, that more than 30% is required. Let's assume that 4 by 12 is not that much. So that item would be rejected. However, we have considered A, B, C, we have considered B, we have considered A, we have considered C. These two things we have not considered, which had come just now. Can I see that what is there, whether they are also frequent? So in this particular portion, I would see that what is the support for them. You see that for the D, the support is 3 by 3. 3 times it has came. The support for F is 1 by 3. The 1 by 3 is lesser, so I can neglect it. But looks like that D is a candidate for being, okay, B is a candidate for being frequent. I would go and search into the complete database only once, and I discover that the D has the value 6. And however, this need not to go to the complete database. There are other methods that can utilize it, that can safely utilize using the negative border sets to give me this value. So we have find out that this particular thing becomes 6. 6 6 by 12 is a good number. That's why I have included this into the frequent item set. So the frequent item set, one size frequent item set that was A, B, C, E, now becomes A, B, C, and D. Understand? This is the mechanism of the FUP. So similarly, two item set can also be applied. It can also be applied to the two item sets. So where is the two item set? Okay, for the here is the two item set. Here, 1 minute, 1 minute. Two item sets are here. Okay, these are the two item sets ABC. So from here, if I want to find out who are the two item set BD, DF, this is going to give me AB, AC, AD, BC. 1 minute. It is going to give me CD. Use these things to add over here and try to find out that what is going to happen. So earlier the value was, for example, AB, AC, and BC. Add the values over here, and the remaining value which are here, you try to see that in this particular region whether they are going to get the enough support. Only BD is going to get the enough support. Check into the complete database. Here also you find out that it is not able to qualify. Then the two items that are in this way created, and you can take this forward, and you can increase the, for example, we have seen for the one item set and two item set. Similarly, you can do for three and others, and you can create the new things. How much investment you have done? You have done only, you are only doing the processing over here. Therefore the processing required is only of the data plus. Here our assumption is that delta minus is not there. In that case, FUP would not work. For that case, we have another algorithm that is called the FUP2, and it has a very interesting observation that if something is going out, something is coming in. So if you want to find out what is the count for this for a particular, for example, A, if you want to find out what is the support for this into the new database D dash, so you see that what was the original count, what was original support for that thing, and then you can see that how much support it has lost because of this thing, how much support it has lost. See how much support it has gained because adding these things, and this is going to be the new value. That's it, very simple. So again, you have to do the processing at the two fronts, and then you would be able to get the answer. Let me just give you this particular thing, that for example, if you want to find out what is the new support for this particular item A, so you see that how many support you are losing. 1, 2, 3, 3 support you are losing into delta minus. How much support you are gaining? 1 support you are gaining. Earlier support was 6, so total is going to be 6 minus 3 plus 1. Total is going to be 6 minus 3 plus 1, that is 4. 4 by how much? 4 by 9, because now also we have only 9 items. So this is, and therefore it is again going to be the frequent item. So very elegant and simple idea that tells that you just process these two parts and find out that what is the support for that item into the things which are gone, what is the support for the items which are actually not came, and by this you would be able to tell that who are the frequent item, and then you can subsequently generate the things. Interesting idea. So we have seen two algorithm. This is another variation of this particular algorithm. Sometimes that is called the daily. So any question till now? Till now, any questions? No. So two methods we have seen. The third method is very interesting. It actually is applied when your data size is very large. For example, I'm just going to give you an example. Don't read these things. I'm going to tell you for a few minutes something else. Let's assume that you have lot of item, maybe say 1 crores of an Arabs of item, lot of items you have, and you want to find out what is their summation. Okay, let's assume that you know that this many number of items you have, and you want to find out their summation, and then this much number of time you have to invest. But let's assume that you are okay with just a understanding that the answer is going to be near to this particular value. Exact answer is not needed, and you very quickly want to understand that what is the value. So the idea is this, that you say that I would be only using 100 item and I would be multiplying that thing with 1,000. What I mean by this, that you pick only 100 item and randomly pick 100 item, create a small set that is called the sampling, and find out that what is the summation over here. Whatever summation you are going to get over here, you multiply this with the 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this answer is going to be near to your solution. It is not going to be very off. It is with some probabilistic guarantee it gives you that your answer would be near to the right answer. How many of you are actually able to appreciate this method? Have you ever seen this method? Okay. Have you ever seen this method? So this is a simplified method in which you can do. It's not very difficult. You may have seen this earlier also. You will be aware of this, that in this way you can find out the near right value. Okay. This is a perfectly right way to find out the near correct value. Okay. It's the perfectly right way. So if the lot of data items are given to you, then this technique comes. This technique comes because only just to support this previous methods, that let's assume that a lot of data items are there, lot of data items are coming to you, and the things are changing at a very fast speed, then you cannot apply the method on the complete data. Then it tells that you take a subset of this data and apply the same thing on that particular thing, whatever we have learned just now. And the method is called the daily. It tells that you take the small subset of the data and see that how many transactions you have taken, divide by total number of transactions, and then you can find out that what is the estimate of the change that is going to happen to that particular frequent item set. And this value is going to be bounded by a maximum and minimum value. If you find out that it is sufficient to consider that particular item, then you consider that particular item. Otherwise, you don't consider that particular item. Make sense? If the items are very large, then you can apply some of the statistical techniques such as finding out the mean and then utilizing those things to bound the possible values, and then you can apply the things into the better way. Next method is again the fourth method that we are going to talk about is again a very simplified method. That is actually that is sometimes it is not directly applicable also, because it actually says that I'm going to consider the things into blocks. Okay, but sometimes you can apply this. For example, if you are allowed to do the things for a day, okay, in one day all the things are actually going to come. So for example, if you want to proceed with the for example the market basket analysis for say the last 6 months data. So what would happen that one day data is going to be given. Your microphone is muted. Okay. So ultimately what is going to happen that one day data is going to be included if you want to, for example, if you want to find out the result on the 6 month data. So one day's data is going to be inducted and last day data need to be removed. This is going to happen. So it actually says, the sliding window filtering actually says that for every day you create these tables, who are the frequent one item set, who are the frequent two item sets, you create that particular thing. And you create when you are going to consider these three things, you add the corresponding tables over here and try to see that who are going to qualify as a frequent item sets. So when this goes away, when they are coming, you are actually maintaining a master table where you are adding. When these item goes away, then you remove, subtract those values. So adding and subtracting, continuously adding and subtracting. What is the idea? Idea is this, that all the data that you have, all the data that you have, you are dividing into the boxes, and for each of the boxes, you are going to find out all the frequent item, all the computations. You are maintaining a master table. If you want to consider three things, you use these values and add into the master table. Do the computation over here and tell me that who are the frequent item set. Then if the window advances, then you remove the summations that were there and you include the summation. You add the values from here. You use this thing to add and use this thing. You use the second part to remove. And by this, your things got updated. So you can go and incrementally you can change the value. You can go ahead with that. So this is another method to do the same thing. Now we want to discuss another important technique. So till now we have discussed what? Market basket analysis. Okay, association rule binding. Now we want to talk something about the clustering. You know that clustering is also a very important application. Sometime you, for example, your clusters could be separated, cluster could be touching each other but separated, cluster could be continuous. For example, they are into one cluster, they are into one cluster. Sometimes you want to do the density based clustering, logical, you understand conceptual clustering, where it looks like that this is one concept, this is second concept, you want to do the clustering like that. Any method that you know for the clustering? K-means. One of the most used thing is the K-means. You apply K-means clustering, where into the area you initialize few K number of centroids, and then based on the data centroid changes their location, and at the end when this stabilizes, we can utilize those points as a representative of the data. So whatever number of data points are there, you are going to represent them unique using only K number of data points. So can you use this thing? Can you use k-means clustering for the dynamic databases? Dynamic databases means when the item is coming and going, can you apply the k-means algorithm? The answer is no. You cannot apply these methods over there. So what should be the way to go ahead with this? So another algorithm, how many of you have heard about the DB scan algorithm? DB scan algorithm. Have you heard about this DB scan? Yes? Density based spatial clustering approaches with the noise. So DB scan is another approach that can be applied on the data to separate the things. So you can see that this data is very much noisy, and you can see that the DB scan was able to segregate these data points. Okay, and there are even many data points which are actually not given to any cluster membership. You can see that everywhere there is a point. If you want to apply anything, it becomes a one thing. But based on the density, we can say that looks like that this is one part, this is second part, and they going to constitute a second part, this is a third part, fourth part. Okay, so actually here the idea is that you are going to divide the thing based on their for example, if let's assume that this is what the data is. So you pick a particular point and say that whether there are three categories of the points: core point, border point, and noise point. First, you label the data points as a core, border, or noise. If the core point is one, that if you in its EPS neighborhood, there is a parameter EPS neighborhood min points number of points. Let's assume min points is equal to 3. So in this area, 3 points would be there. Then I would call that it is a core point. All other points which are actually into the epsilon neighborhood of a core point, they are called the border point, and all other rest of the points are called the noise point. So first we do this kind of cluster, this kind of labeling to all the data points. Then we apply a DFS. Means if there is a point, we see that if there is an epsilon in the epsilon neighborhood, there is another core point. Then we match with them using some DFS algorithm, and we say that this is going to be one cluster. And then all the border points are also assigned to them, that they are also the part of this. So multiple clusters are actually by this they are formed, and the remaining points actually there becomes noise point, and no border membership is allowed to them. So important point of the, oh my god, so this slide is actually okay. So this slide actually has some problem that, but I would try to show you that what I wanted to mean by this. So actually I wanted to show you that let's assume that this is one cluster, this is another cluster. Let's assume that this is one cluster, and this is, there are few points which are not into the cluster. So two clusters are there. Don't see other points. Let's assume that this point come in the incremental setting I'm talking about. Let's assume that you have a, and two clusters are already there. Let's assume that you have decided that two clusters are there and few points, and let's assume that this is also not point, this is also not came, this is also point, this is a new point. So when this new point came, you can see that it is far away, and you see that into epsilon neighborhood there is other point, no point is there. So you say that this is a noise point. If a point comes and you see that into the nearby area sufficient number of other points that was there, that was needed, mean points, sufficient number of mean points are available, then you say that new cluster is created. The new cluster can be created. When you find, when a new point comes here, that is very, that in its epsilon neighborhood, 2 points of the two different clusters are there, then you can merge these clusters and you say that this cluster becomes one cluster. If a point arises here where he is inside a cluster, then it can be absorbed. So you can see that these four cases, which are all possible cases, if they arises, then you can proceed into this particular way. This is the incremental setting for this, that DB scan. What would happen if the data removes? For example, if this data removes, no change, no problem. If this data removes, means what? That this you have to find out only into the local neighborhood, that what are the points into the local neighborhood, and you can tell that okay, this the cluster that we have created is now destroyed. If this point is goes away, you have to see that okay, now this, since it has gone, then these two are the new clusters. Then it may split into the two parts. If you see that the last the points which are there, if the distance between them is greater than epsilon, then you can say that I'm going to split them. If you find out a point that is actually at the border, then what happens, that earlier this cluster was this, now the cluster becomes this, cluster becomes small, cluster becomes small. So it could be shrink. All these things are possible. So because of this, we have seen a method that is called the DB scan, and we are going to call it incremental DB scan, that can handle what? Incremental changes into the database. Incremental DB scan is the algorithm that actually utilizes it. For example, this is what the database is, where these are the initial clusters, and let's assume that these are the new data coming to you. What we would do for each of the points over here, for each of the data points you here, this is actually here, na? This is a new data point, so if this point is actually here, you try to see into the epsilon neighborhood. If there is other point, then you say that okay, whether it is going to be absorbed or it is going to be converted, going to be merging two different clusters or what. So you can apply all these things. The algorithm says that you handle the insertion and deletion separately. Whenever a new item is coming, after some time, whenever all the data points, you pick a particular place, and then you apply a DB scan on that. And then on the DB scan, when you apply the DB scan, pick a particular point, find out that if there is a nearby point, then all the points are going to be the same level as this particular item was having. If some points are having one level, some points are having different level, then you again pick a new level and apply all these points which are actually going to be connected in this particular way, and you can combine. So very interesting idea, that then you can combine and match these things, and new clusters you can very easily find. However, only problematic thing into this particular setting is this, that given a item, how can you find out that which is the nearest point to me? And solution to this can be obtained using a special kind of data structure such as R-tree. So as I told you that it is an interesting algorithm. Try to see this algorithm by yourself. It is an interesting idea. So till now we have seen the clustering. Now let us talk about the final part, that final and last part that I want to talk with you. That let's assume that you have data stream. Data stream means lot of data is coming to you. Lot of data is coming to you. And you want to tell me that which are the important cluster to make. So let me tell you that what I mean by this particular setting. Here our setting is this, that actually every item that is actually old is going to be evaporated kind of thing. So you are into the Ahmedabad, this is a place where a lot of heat is there. Into a summer, into the summer noon, if you go on your go on some place and a small rain comes, okay, even small drops are coming, so you can see that raindrop is coming over there, then it becomes a smaller and smaller, and it then evaporates, and then in between new drop is coming, and you can see that thing, the same phenomena is also happening over. Have you seen this interesting phenomena? Have you seen this somewhere when you were, it was a very hot day, and some cloud came and you got some rain drop is coming. You can see that the drop is there, and then drop becomes smaller and smaller, and after that, have you seen this? Interesting idea? Yes? Have you seen this? Yes or no? Okay. So similar thing we are going to see. You assume that the lot of data is coming to you, but right now you want to tell that which are the things with me. which are the important things are there with me, which are the important cluster right now. For example, things are coming and going, but you want to tell that it looks like that this is the cluster, this cluster is gone. You are going to be into this particular scenario, you can apply this algorithm that is called the Dehn stream. Here we assume the item which is here is going to lose his weight with as the time increases. The weight is initially w, then after some time it becomes w upon 2 to the power lambda, then it becomes w upon 2 to the power lambda square, w upon 2 to the power lambda cube, no, 3 lambda, it's not cube, the 3 lambda, 4 lambda, 5 lambda. So you can see that by this the actually raindrop was actually bigger, then it becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, and when it becomes very small it evaporates. Makes sense? So this algorithm says that if you want to do the processing on that, you have to maintain three kind of things which are there. What are the three kind of things? Core microcluster, potential microcluster, and outlier microcluster. So anyway, this is the paper that has more details on this. Try to see that particular paper. So it says this is a very elegant algorithm that tells that I am going to maintain three kind of cluster, core microcluster. Core microclusters are one actually that are such that where there is a lot of density. Density means what? If I see that epsilon neighborhood, if I see the epsilon neighborhood of that particular item, I would be seeing that mu is the amount of item that is there. Mu is the amount of mass that is there. At least mu mass is there. So what is this mu? You can say that let's assume that there are t items and they are coming at these are the points with the mass and they are coming at this particular time. If you want to find out the weight, you have to apply this particular function that we have just talked about, that ft is equal to 2 to the power lambda t. This function you apply, and you see that because as the time goes away, then the weight is going to be decreased. If this weight is greater than some mu, then you are going to say that this is a good item. Otherwise, you say that it's not a good item. And this particular paper actually presents a very interesting idea of this kind of summation that is actually incrementally could be updated. So for all the items, this can be incrementally updated. And when the person needs that who are the actually clusters, then you can use the items which are there into the core microcluster and you can provide me the clustering out of that. So there is also a notion of the potential microcluster, means when the new data items are coming, you are going to put into a particular set with a property so that you can incrementally update it. And when they attain sufficient amount of weight, then they are also called that looks like that here also we get the sufficient density, and now they can also be included for counted for a new clusters. Very interesting idea. So I would not go into the much into the detail, but I just wanted to give you this idea, brief idea, high level idea to you, so that you can motivate it and you can read this particular thing also. Very interesting algorithm that when this it was tested on the three kind of data sets and it was able to generate this kind of, you can see that correct kind of things are being generated. Even with the when there was a noise, you can see that this was the data, but data from other data sets are some data is actually placed over here. But then also it was able to produce the right kind of things only, because you know that these things are going to attain, because less points are there, so they would be having lesser weight and therefore they would be neglected. So this was the idea from my side. Thank you.